Hello and welcome to part 2 of our tutorial of how to put together the MDF terrain that comes with the core SLASH-ACCRE set. We're going to start by taking a look at this sheet here. Now, you can tell that this looks a little bit different from what we've looked at before, but don't be overwhelmed by it. It actually contains pieces to assemble 4 different locations that you'll be using in the game. So right now we're just going to punch out these pieces. Once again, they should come right off of the frame with very little problem. Now, the 3 pieces that are contained in this particular sheet are going to be the deep woods, the campsite, as well as the docks. It also comes with a couple of bases for the trees. So these pieces right here are a little bit delicate, so be careful with them. These can break relatively easily. If they do break, once again, as I mentioned in the previous video, feel free to send me an email. The address is pickyourbattles@hotmail.com. I will replace anything that gets broken. However, keep in mind these little guys are actually pretty easy to fix with just a little bit of glue. So we're going to take a look at this right here. This is the entry gate to the camp. And in the middle of it here are these 2 pieces. These are actually bases for the freestanding trees. I'm going to go ahead and pop those out and set them aside for now. We will be going over the trees in a little bit. But right now, let's take a look at the entry gate. Now, this is really one of the easiest things that we're going to have in here because these 4 posts, they just plug right into the base. And actually, they go in really tight. So, I am going to put a little bit of glue on this as I do everything else, but honestly, this one doesn't really need it. It's really kind of stays together. So now we're going to take a look at this bag here. This actually comes with a bunch of acrylic laser cut pieces, as well as a couple of wood ones. Now keep in mind, this is a common mistake. These little pieces down in the bottom here, these are not trash. They're not trash, they're not excess. They're actually clumps of grass, and they have little pegs on the end. We'll be using that a little bit later to decorate the bases with, so don't throw those out. The first pieces we are going to take a look at are the laser cut wooden trees. You see, these ones are kind of like a dead tree, as you can see. There's enough to assemble 3 of those. And we also have enough parts to assemble 4 of these sort of more traditional pine trees. Now, you can use either of them. They have the same base. However, you know, we want you to have variety, so you can choose kind of what you put where on which bases. Also comes with this. This right here is a sort of a laser cut acrylic water base for the dock. We'll be looking at that shortly. And also these little orange acrylic pieces. These there's 2 of them here. If I can get this one out. These make up the campfire that's going to go at the center of the camp. So we'll go ahead and put these down. And the rest of what's in here are sort of laser cut bushes of various sizes. And of course the grass I mentioned earlier. All of this are used to decorate the bases. So now we're going to take a look at one of the easiest assemblies here, the docks. Now the docks have these little posts. They're going to go right onto these 8 pegs that are at the side. Be careful, as I mentioned, these are pretty delicate. Best thing to do is to really get your thumb right under the peg hole and sort of push in evenly. So we're going to go ahead and put those on here. There are 8 of them. And there we go. Now we're just going to secure them with a little bit of glue and some zip kicker. And there we go. Already cured. So it's already secure. So really, that right there is how the dock goes. Now we're going to take that sandy beach base that we punched out earlier. That has 4 holes in it. Those will line up right at the bottom of the posts. So we're going to go ahead and line those up. And then very carefully push them right in. Again, no glue really required. It stays pretty well. Now we're going to take this acrylic water-based piece that we mentioned before. And if you take a look, the bottom fits right up against the beach base. So once that's there, they'll line up the 4 holes that are on the water base and just work those in, and there you go, the docks. Next thing we're going to look at is the camp itself, the actual center campfire piece. we're going to start with these two little pieces right here. Both of them have a hole in the center. We're going to line those up right on top of each other. As you can see, that sort of makes the little bundle of logs that is at the base of our campfire. I'm going to take this acrylic piece, the one with the long peg, and we're going to go right through the holes in the center of both of those little bundles of wood. As you can see, there is a little bit of it still sticking out the bottom. We're going to go ahead and put that through the hole in the center of our camp base. So let me move this little piece aside and right through the center. And there we go. Now we're just going to take the other acrylic fire piece, which is slotted on the bottom. I'm going to slot it right over that main piece there, and there you go, instant campfire. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of the trees. You know, I think for this one we're going to use one of the dead trees, just for variety. Once again, they have the same kind of bases on them. They fit in the same slots. We just want you to be able to choose which ones you want to use where. Now, if you take a look, these have reverse slots, just like the cabins we put together so far. Slot those into each other, and we have this sort of dead, spooky tree. That base at the bottom, as I mentioned, those two equidistant little pegs at the bottom will line up with a lot of the spaces that we have on the base here. I'm going to choose right here to put our tree, and that stays pretty good as well. Of course, I am going to glue it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of these bushes that I mentioned before. We're just going to start taking random bushes of random different sizes. Take a few of those out. Let's see. I'll take that one. Maybe one of these ones. And I don't know if you can see this. Here are the clumps of grass I mentioned. As you can see, there's a little peg in the bottom. Those are going to slot into those holes as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to slot them into the holes in the base. As you can tell, if you line up a few of these of different sizes, they're going to kind of form a nice little bush. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put this one here. This one right here. And we'll put this one behind it. There you go, and even though these are flat pieces, when you put a few of them together, they sort of give the impression of, some kind of, some foliage. Now, there's another hole on the bottom here. I could put another bush in here, but you know what? I'm going to use one of those little grass clumps we talked about before. There we go. So you're going to go ahead and fill all of the different holes here with any configuration of the bushes you want. We're just going to sort of skip ahead and show you what it looks like. Here we are. So that is the finished campsite. Looks pretty good, and every campsite's going to look a little bit differently because everyone's going to assemble it their own way. As I mentioned before, you could use the dead trees, you can use the clumps of grass, you could use more bushes in those spaces, you could use the pine tree if you wanted to instead of this wooden kind of spooky one. I give you all these pieces so they have variety. Now we're going to take a look at the deep woods. This is the plate for the deep woods. As you can tell, it has the same holes and the same pegs, although there are more spaces where the trees could go. So I think this time we're going to use probably the pine trees. So we're going to take the pine trees, and as you can tell, it's slotted the same way that everything else is slotted. The lower piece snaps right into this one, has the same base as the wooden trees. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this one here. So we're going to go ahead and repeat this process until we filled up all the little holes on the base. There's going to be a lot more trees, of course, bushes, grass, and everything. We're going to skip ahead. And there you go. I chose to use a lot of greenery in this because it's supposed to be the deep forest. As you can tell, we got the clumps of grass, bushes that we did before. Everything's glued in. I also used a couple of different kinds of trees just for sort of for variety. And there you go. There's the deep forest. Finally, we're going to take a look at the bases for the standalone trees. It has the two holes on it that fit any tree, as well as some extras for some more greenery. Let me show you what that looks like completely assembled. Here's an example of both the wooden tree and the pine tree. As you notice, I have some clumps of grass in the bottom to kind of spruce it up. You could put bushes there as well, but I tend to like the grass and the trees. So there you have it. That is everything that comes with the SLASH-ACCRE core game, assembled and ready to play. Your 6 cabins, your deep woods, your docks, your freestanding trees, your entry gate, and your campsite. I'm going to go ahead and leave this assembled copy over at Midgard Comics and Games in Derry, New Hampshire, in case anyone wants to check it out in person or learn how to play with a demo. And for all of you watching at home, I hope this helped you assemble your copy of the game, and I hope to hear from you and see pictures of your assembled games over on the Facebook group. Come and join us over there, and till then, thank you for joining us.